News Nation Decision Desk HQ poll released today finds that 49% of registered voters indicated they would consider voting for a third-party candidate in 2024, with 23% saying they were very likely and 26% somewhat likely.
Ooh, among the selection of third-party candidates included, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders received the highest level of support at 21%. Former Representative Liz Cheney received 10%, and 43% said someone else that wasn't listed. Another interesting finding from the poll, 70% of people think the United States is on the wrong track. Definitely seems like there's a correlation between that belief and the interest in third parties. Bernie Sanders obviously has said he has no interest in running again through his early support behind Joe Biden. Yeah. Liz Cheney, I suspect...
She could run as an independent, I guess, third party. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Has she said that she is interested in doing that? I mean, she would have absolutely no chance in the Republican primaries, obviously. It would just be as a protest. And even there are kind of already people doing that, right, including Mike Pence to some degree. Probably not to the degree Liz Cheney is. But, yeah, I don't know if she's interested in running third party. I don't know what... Again, I'm not sure there's a party that would want to acquire her. The third parties are the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, and then others of various size. Libertarian Party is my party. I have a lot of affection for them. It's not clear who will be our nominee this time around. Last time it was a lovely woman named Jo Jorgensen. And before that, it was a more notable political figure, somewhat more notable, and he actually held office, Governor Gary Johnson, former governor of New Mexico, although he disappointed a lot of libertarians, I think, with some of his positions were actually a little just kind of regular liberal, honestly. I think
what
he was not,
is Aleppo?
There was that.
I'm not saying that it's reduced to that one moment, but that was the.
I know it's such a shame that moment went so viral because the question was kind of sprung on him in a very like it was a context-free. What about Aleppo?
Sure.
Without any, turning to Syria now, What about the situation in Aleppo?
Sure. Well, look, this is really fascinating to me for many reasons. One, obviously, Cornel West just announced that he's running with the People's Party. As a third-party candidate. Now, there's been a lot of discussion on the left about the merits of doing so, since the People's Party has had issues with its founder and some allegations and some questions about whether or not
there's
some kind of Me Too style allegations against the founder, Nick Briahna. There have been allegations of basically misuse of funds. A lot of people donated to the People's Party, especially after 2020, because they were so frustrated with how the Bernie campaign ended, and they wanted to do a break from the Democratic Party and really invest in getting ballot access and setting up a third-party candidate for real success outside of the Democratic Party, which has admitted in court that it feels no need to be fair and that it can actually pick its own candidates behind closed doors. That being said, they have done very little in terms of actually securing ballot access, and so many people think that a run on the People's Party line is futile, unless you're expecting people to do basically a write-in campaign, because they won't actually be on the ballot in almost any state. Now, that being said, I actually conducted an interview that will be coming out Thursday on Bad Faith Podcast with a ballot access expert. There is a Harvard Law Journal article that came out recently that argued that it was almost impossible for Donald Trump, it was focused on Donald Trump specifically, to choose to run in the general election as an independent after having run and lost in a primary. And the article and the people who asked those publishers to come and interview with them seem to be invested in assuring the public that Donald Trump, if you defeat him in the primary, he's out for good. This person quibbles with the analysis in that article, says that if you actually look at the precedent, including a precedent established by Gary Johnson, that very few of the so-called sore loser laws that preclude someone who runs in a presidential primary from running in a general election have ever been applied in a federal electoral context. So they tend to be for state level races, and they're written in that way because for obvious reasons, you can't write a law that says you can't run, let's say, you can't say Joe Biden can't run on the ticket in the general election in South Carolina if he lost South Carolina in the primary. Obviously, Democrats are going to lose a lot of red states in the primary and still win and still in their primary, but they're not like a general election context battlegrounds for them. No one expects, you know what I mean? So you have to allow them to go ahead and run. And so when you look at all of the states that actually have sore loser laws that have been applied, or any other laws that would preclude people from running, It would be a little tougher for Republicans because there's some big states with a lot of electoral votes, like Texas, that do have sore loser laws that have been applied. But for a left-leaning candidate, a kind of Democrat-leaning candidate, all of the states that Democrats, the left broadly, needs to win to get the number of electoral votes that are necessary, it's an open field. So this person thinks there's a very strong chance that someone who either did a dirty break strategy or just ran as an independent would have a pretty good shot, which validates the strategy of like a Marianne Williamson or RFK Jr. saying I'm going to run and then break, or potentially someone like a Cornel West style candidate who I think is getting a lot of support because people like the fact that he's not even trying to run within the cover of the Democratic Party and is perhaps better positioned to be more oppositional to the corporate parties as a whole.
You have some friendship with Marianne, so you know maybe some of her thinking. It doesn't seem to me like she has any intention to pursue an independent bid if she is defeated in the Democratic nomination.
That question has been very controversial. She gave an interview on a channel called The Vanguard where they asked her that. And she said, it depends on how you treat me. Something that's very similar to what Donald Trump has said, which is if this is a fair primary process, who knows what's going to happen. Some leftists say that that was a dodge and that she has no intention to do a dirty break strategy. Others say, obviously, she can't announce it so explicitly because it will make the Democratic Party feel empowered to exclude her from, debates and whatever other opportunities there may be available to her running within the Democratic Party in the first place, and it will undermine her decision to even run as a Democrat at all. Why would she, cut herself off at the knees? So that's up for debate.
The interesting case would be RFK Jr. running as a third party, given that with some of his political positions, he obviously is drawing some support from the right, from Trump people, from independent-minded people. He just did a Twitter space with Elon Musk where he is clearly popular. So some of his audience is overlapping with those kinds of right-leaning Twitter people who care a lot about censorship and our anti-interventionist foreign policy and COVID, of course. A three-way race between RFK Jr. as an independent versus Biden versus Trump would be interesting.
Yes.
Would be something akin maybe to the Ross Perot election with Clinton and Bush back in 92, I think, where you did have the last time there was a significant vote for a third party candidate who did draw support from both directions and fundamentally change the dynamics in that race.
Yeah, and look, sometimes the goal here isn't to win necessarily. Some people, like Ralph Nader, said, look, I'm going to run. I have a list of concerns. Do 5 out of the 10 of these things on this list, 2 out of the 20 things on this list, and I'll drop out of the race. He took that position to Al Gore, and Al Gore said, no, I'm good, and then he lost. So some people say, I'm going to run as a third-party candidate as an intentional spoiler candidate to have leverage to try to force these two corporate parties to do something for the people. Either listen to me or you're going to risk losing the election. And the Democratic Party, at least, has proven over and over again that it would rather lose an election, nominate Hillary Clinton being deeply unpopular as she was, not listen to Ralph Nader's populist, reasonable list of options that they could have just taken up as part of the agenda, and instead throw the election to the other side. And we'll see if there's a different outcome, if it's more of a conservative leading candidate. Is the Republican Party more flexible to these sorts of things? Who knows? But there is an enormous appetite here, and there are a number of candidates in the race who have shown a willingness to be more adversarial to the Democratic Party than even Bernie Sanders has been.
More Rising right after this.